Guys can remember Vinyl Season 1 Episode 5 He and Racist Fire, and I was looking forward to this episode because Episode 4 was, I think, a step in the right direction. I definitely was hoping that this episode would be as well, and not only was this episode a step in the wrong direction completely, this was worse than Episode 3. This was by far the weakest entry from Vinyl so far, and it's not because it was a bad episode. There were some really great scenes in this episode, but there were some horrible character choices, particularly for Richie, and let me just get to why. Look, you can have a main character that's not really likable and make really bad decisions and things like that. You can actually have a really compelling character from that. There are a lot of characters that don't make the best decisions and things like that. I mean, they're just great human characters. There's a difference between a human character, though, and a complete main character that should be the villain. And that's exactly what Richie is in this episode. There's nothing really interesting going on with Richie. I mean, for me, you can have a character that's unlikable, but they need to have something that's interesting and something where you're like, oh, right, I understand why they did that, or there's their motivation for that. This episode basically takes everything that's good about Richie and just completely be like, no, he's actually an asshole, and everything he does in this episode. There's not a single scene where Richie's not being insulting. There's not a single scene where he's not being an asshole, and that really pissed me off because the other episodes show, such as episode 1, that he has good qualities. He just has a lot within him that makes him really angry, and there's a lot within him that makes him very dickish, and he's very powerful, and the power has gone to his head and things like that. And you really see a lot of that here, and the show seems like it's trying to redeem Richie, but then they do episodes like this, and it seems like they're trying to make it even worse for him, and I'd rather see him turn his life around than just keep having the same shit happen over and over again. No one wants to see a redundant storyline. That's exactly what this seemed like. But let's just get into this episode because there were some really great scenes. And we start off right away with Richie being an asshole. We see there's a music showcase searching for new talent, and Richie is less than impressed with the lineup, which I will admit that the band Wired Fist is very strange, definitely. It's a band that basically he thinks is from the Sherwood Forest, and Clark, this is the band that he's hoping to sign to the label for his 2-week ultimatum expires, because remember, he has 2 weeks and he hasn't found an artist, and he basically just used this artist so he could just be like, alright, I found an artist, and you can tell right away Richie's not impressed. No one there's impressed. I think, Julie was there, Zach was there, people like that, and they weren't really impressed either, and, you can tell that even though Clark is trying, they're not impressed at all, and I don't blame them. I mean, it wasn't a great act, but at least Clark tried. Like, I would have at least been like, alright, Clark, you gave effort, but it didn't work. Richie doesn't even seem like he's happy that Clark at least tried. He's just like, this is the worst shit I've ever seen, get out of here. He's not even complimenting Clark, and I understand that Clark is not very respected, but Clark just, he didn't get a chance to find an act. At least he tried, you know, he had the effort, and he didn't just completely just, you know, stop forgetting about it. He did find an act, and I like that he did that, and Richie should at least be happy for that, but he's not. And then we see Richie's father, Sal, who calls Richie to let him know he spoke to the police, and Sal has now detailed info about Buck Rogers' murder, and Richie doesn't want to talk about it over the phone. Sal agrees to stop by the record label office the next morning, and you knew that that was, of course, what Richie was going to talk to him about. The thing that I don't like about the storyline is that there's not a single person that Richie is saying, I killed Buck Rogers. There's not a single person. Even his father, who he wants to be his alibi, he's not even saying, oh yeah, I killed Buck Rogers. He's not even saying that because, yeah, he is the one that did it. And yeah, Corzo is the one that did it as well, but Richie started all of it, and you know, Richie isn't taking the credit for it. He's clearly going to, I think, pin Corzo for it, make it seem like it's all Corzo's fault, and while it is partially Corzo's fault, it's just as much Richie's fault, and Richie needs to just confess that, hey, I did it, and if he would just tell somebody, anybody, that he did it, I would not be upset. But the fact that he's making it seem like he's completely innocent, he had nothing to do with this, and he wasn't even there, that I'm upset about. If he would at least be like, alright, I was there, I saw it go down, that I'd be fine with. But he's not saying that. He's saying, oh, I had nothing to do with this, I wasn't there, I was away. He's not even telling anyone the truth, and that's really pissing me off that Richie's not doing that, because, again, like I said, he's an unlikable character, but there's nothing interesting about him, you know, he's not really doing anything interesting there. It's just a step back, and I don't like that. I really am not liking the way that that's going. So, Richie's story, like I said, just not that interesting this episode. A lot of it just include him being an asshole. That's his entire storyline. So we see in American Century's office the next morning, Julie's handing out pink slips when he calls into the office Clark, and Clark is fired. He's fired for what he did, even though he tried, he's fired, and he actually breaks into tears, and he starts crying hysterically, and I like seeing Clark genuinely upset. Like, you could tell he really wanted this job, and, you know, Julie's just saying stop being a pussy and everything, which I've liked Julie, but I didn't like him in this episode either. I gotta say, a lot of the main guys I'm starting to not love. I mean, Julie, I've really really enjoyed, but this episode, he was just an asshole. I mean, come on, let him cry. I understand that, like, he looks like a pussy for it, but he just really cared about his job. Let him cry, let him have it out. Julie's not even that good guy, and Julie reconsiders, and seeing that Clark, is crying and begging to stay, he decides to give Clark a go for a job, a drastic pay cut, which will make him Jamie's equal, and hesitantly Clark agrees, even though he doesn't want, to be cut back on money. He at least is still in the company, and that's what matters to him. He wants to still be at American Century, and I think this makes Clark a better character, because so far we've just seen Clark as the guy that no one likes, the guy that's very awkward, and the guy that's somewhat good at his job at some things, but here we really saw him as determined. Like, this is what matters to him. American Century, this position, he cares, and I think that's something that I really do give this episode. That they made Clark a more interesting character. I definitely really enjoyed that, and that was really great, and it was definitely better than our main storyline, which, like I said, had to do with Richie being an asshole and things like that. So we see that Cece is spending a lot of time with Hannibal and arriving late to work, and it's beginning to affect the daily run of the offices. And Richie calls her out on it. Richie's saying how Hannibal's married, and Cece gives Richie vital information she's overheard during her time with Hannibal. Primarily that Jervis is working overtime to lure Hannibal to his label, and obviously Richie's really worried with this, because the whole idea of this is to keep Richie, to keep Hannibal. He wants to keep Hannibal on their side, not lose Hannibal to, Jervis Coronet Records. He doesn't want that to happen, because obviously, Jervis is his enemy and everything, and I like the way this was done. In hindsight, this is a good story, and there's a lot you can do with it, with Richie wanting to keep Hannibal. But again, it just comes across as Richie just wanting everything. That's really what it comes across as, is that Richie can't just let go of an act and say, all right, if you want to go here, I understand. There's nothing with that. I mean, even though he's being nice to Hannibal, deep down he's thinking, oh yeah, I want to keep him. Obviously he wants to keep him, but he doesn't say to Hannibal, like, I want to, he doesn't say to Hannibal, if you want to go, just go. He doesn't say that. He makes it clear that he does not want him to leave. And then we see Andi, who we see a lot more of Andi in this episode, and I kind of like what they did here and kind of didn't. She's Jervis's assistant and Richie's former assistant slash girlfriend. She's come with some promotional ideas that have caught Hannibal's ear, and that's why Hannibal likes it. Some of the ideas that they have, he's enjoying, and this obviously concerns Richie. He wants to keep Hannibal. He doesn't want to get rid of him, and Hannibal's starting to enjoy some of their ideas, and this obviously is upsetting Richie. So Richie comes up with an idea to wine and dine with Hannibal. He's going to have Devon, and then he's going to go on a date. He's going to go on a date with Devon, and Hannibal will go on a date with Cece, and they'll do a double date, and Richie calls Devon to run it by her, and she, of course, at first is like, what are you talking about? And again, they never have that conversation in this episode that she's met with a divorce lawyer. And that's the thing that doesn't make sense. I mean, this really didn't work, because we know that Devon met with a divorce lawyer. There should have been one point in this episode where she said, I met with a divorce lawyer. They never have that conversation in this episode. They argue, they do, but they never have that conversation. And I don't know if it's because Devon thinks that maybe they can fix their marriage, or she's trying to keep him from finding out. I don't really know, but just the fact she didn't tell him, I mean, it's probably something that Richie should know. It directly involves him, and it's his fault pretty much, even though, I mean, they're not really working together. It is pretty much Richie's fault, and you should call him out in it, definitely, and she's not. I'm surprised she didn't, and especially because they get into a huge argument later, and she doesn't even bring up the divorce lawyer, which I'll get into. So Richie, Zach, and the PR director meet with Kip and Lester to begin his grooming process and promotional touring, which will stop by WMMS in Cleveland. And you can tell right away they really want to go through with this promotion and everything. And Kip asks Jamie to be present at the meeting, and Richie agrees and sends for her. And you definitely see that Kip and Jamie, they're getting closer. Definitely, I think that these two are going to get together. They even have sex in this episode. And Kip is oblivious to everything they're saying. Jamie's able to break down the music, speak in a way that Kip can understand, which I've always found very funny. I mean, Kip doesn't really understand the music business the way that everyone else does, because Kip just has a different way of looking at music, and I find it pretty funny. I think Kip is one of the more humorous characters on this show, and I enjoy that. And Richie quickly grows weary of Kip's lipness and gives him some hard cultures about the business, and I like what he says, that, this isn't gonna, Richie says here, I mean, it makes sense why he was upset here, that this isn't gonna cut, it's not gonna work, and that the business, you need to be more versed in this kind of stuff. But really, Kip was just, he didn't know as much, and Jamie was trying to tell him, and Richie just had to, give his 2 cents and everything. That's the thing I hate about this episode. It seemed like everything that happened, Richie had to be directly involved in, and I was really upset about it. I mean, Richie's not a bad character. It's just the way he was written this episode is completely the wrong way to write Richie. When you have a main character, you should never be annoyed by that main character. You should always be like, all right, I understand why that main character is the way they are. You can make them sort of unlikable or not knowing or realizing what they're doing, but you have to have something that redeems them or something that makes them interesting. And for Richie, there's nothing. He's a music producer that's abandoning everyone. He's focused on his business, and that's it. That's really all he's focused on. Everything he does benefits him, and if it doesn't benefit him, he's gonna go off. And that's really what Richie is right now. And to me, that seems like how you write a villain and not a hero. And Richie is definitely not the hero of this story. Who is the hero of the story? I don't know, maybe Jamie, maybe Lester, but Richie is definitely not the hero of Vinyl, and not that he's a bad main character, it's just I feel like they need to write him better than they did in this episode, because it's not really the way to write Richie. So Richie mentions the possibility of Duck, Kip's best friend, be cut from the bits, and Kip rebels against the idea, but he feels he should be, that Duck isn't good at what he does, and that he's kind of just, not very good, and, he's very average at best, and that they need someone a lot better, but this is Kip's best friend, and he really doesn't want to get rid of him, and, but, they have to get rid of him, they have to, and I understood why. I mean, if they have someone that's not great at what they do, they need to get rid of them. Remember, Richie's looking for the next great act, not just something mediocre. He's looking for something great, and you definitely saw that here. So Jamie goes to speak with Julie, wondering if she's been promoted since Clark has been given her job, and he says she hasn't been promoted, but he's watching to see how she handles the ongoing development of the Nasty Bits deal, and he'll get back to her. So you can tell he is thinking of promoting her, because remember, she's the one that found the Nasty Bits, and no one is giving her credit for it, which again makes sense, because back then, women weren't as known and that kind of stuff, and weren't as respected, which that I understand. Jamie's a great character. A lot of people are saying Jamie should be the main character. I kind of see that, honestly. I'd love to see more focus on Jamie, because she's such a great character, and she's so interesting. We definitely saw that here. And really, out of all the characters, she's the one I sympathize with the most. Her and Lester, without a doubt, are my two favorite characters on this show. All the main guys, I'm not a huge fan of. I like Devon as well. Devon's a great character. If I had to pick three great characters, it would be her, Lester, and Devon. Those are my three favorite characters. Everyone else, I'm kind of just in the middle about. Richie, I like when they don't give him what they did in this episode. Zach, I like Zach, but I don't like Scott. I don't really care about Scott and Skip. I don't give two shits about, really. Julie's just unlikable in general. Just in this episode, he was not likable, but I did like that he tried to help Jamie, and that he told her straight out, look, if you want this position, I'll give it to you. I like that that was done. He just needs to see how this goes, because he doesn't know if the Nasty Bits is going to work. Remember, he was the one that tried to fix them, and Richie didn't like that, so now he's just trying to see if this works, and he cautionally, I think, wants to give her this position, but right now he just doesn't know if it's the right thing to do, and I think deep down Julie does want her to go forward, which I like seeing. So Richie goes to meet Andi at a photo shoot, invites her to a dinner with Devon and Hannibal, asks her to return to American Century, and she says she can't make it, and they go back and forth about everything that's wrong. She pretty much just wants to hear the answer of why they didn't work out, and why he left her for Devon, because this was the girl he was gonna marry, and then he married Devon. You can tell why she's really upset about it, and in no point do you think Richie was in the right here. Everything she's saying, it sounds like, Richie was wrong for doing this, that, they had a whole thing planned, and then he left her for Devon for whatever reason, and there's nothing here that makes me think, alright, I understand why Richie did, especially the reason why he left, which we'll get into, which is so shallow in the end, and when it's all said and done, Andi leaves Richie wondering where she stands, and she just wants an answer. She wants an answer of why they didn't work out, and, she's bringing up things from the past that he's completely in the wrong for, but doesn't want to talk about, and again, she's completely in the wrong for it, and he really should be listening to her. And then we get an amazing twist. Now, this twist, I love it. If the entire episode was like this twist, I would have loved it. We've heard of Jamie's mom before. We knew there was something going on there, but we really haven't seen a lot of her, and we find out that that woman that silenced the Nasty Bits and told them to leave is actually Jamie's mother, which I thought was very interesting, and I really love that. I love that we found out this was Jamie's mother. She's her real mother, Mrs. Feynman, and she goes to meet her for lunch at an upscale restaurant, speaking to Jamie only in Polish. The two go back and forth about Jamie allowing the Nasty Bits to perform in the basement of a restaurant, and Jamie gives her mother the key to the restaurant, and Mrs. Feynman wants to take over the business one day, but Jamie's trying to forge her own path, and I like the way this was done. I definitely really enjoyed this. You see that she really does care about her, and you see that she really does want to take over this business and everything, which I like seeing, but Jamie really wants to focus on being in Richie's position. That's what Jamie wants. She wants to be like Richie, and even though I don't think she really likes Richie's attitude, she wants to be like Richie, and I feel like Jamie's eventually going to get there. And just the way she's being written, it feels like Jamie should have been the protagonist. Just the way she's written here, it just feels like this could have been our hero of the show, and she's not our hero, and it's very interesting the way they're handling it. It's very very much like I think, Mad Men Peggy situation. The difference is that Don was such a more interesting character. There was a lot of shit he's been through, and Richie, in contrast, is just not a great character, and that's why Jamie is so much more interesting, because there's a lot going on with her. I mean, Jamie's not the greatest person either. I mean, she's, just went to that place without permission and everything, and she's trying to take over the business, which I like seeing, and I definitely like that. We saw, this conversation with her and her mother. I just am trying to figure out what went so wrong, because if you remember, she's not living with her mother. She's living with her aunt, and we still don't know what happened with her mother, which I definitely really liked. At first, I thought that was the woman who told her to leave the room and everything, but it wasn't. It's not involved with that at all, but it does go with Jamie trying to get the band to perform there, which we'll have to see what that happens. I like the way that was done. Really good stuff there, and I like that stuff with Jamie. So Richie arrives at the American Century offices to find his father, engaging several employees in humorous stories about Richie's childhood, and again, Richie just goes off on him, and he's just telling funny stories about his childhood, and Richie's pissed. I mean, for no reason. I understand he doesn't want him to look bad in front of these employees, but they're just his friends. Like, we know that Richie, Zach, Scott, Skip, and Julie hang out all the time. Like, they're friends, and Richie shouldn't have a problem with his father telling them stories. I mean, we saw in the first episode that Devon was telling stories and things like that. Richie didn't have a problem with that, and on his birthday, he didn't have a problem with that here. I don't know why he had such a problem here. It just felt so out of character. In this episode, anything that happens with Richie, anything that, humorous, anything like that, he just goes off on, and he's not at all happy about. And we see in the love-hate relationship with Richie and his father, Sal. Hate is winning during their short meeting in Richie's office. There's obviously a lot of anger and unresolved conflict between the two, and again, we get into this idea that Richie says, oh, I wasn't there, I had nothing to do with Buck's death, and it's stupid. I don't like the way they're handling this. I wish Richie would just speak up, and I understand he's not going to tell his father because he's not very fond of him, but just tell someone. I don't care who, but just tell someone, I did kill Buck, I was involved, and I wasn't the one that directly killed him, it was Corzo, but I was involved with it, and he had a good reason for doing it. Like, it was a defense kill. That's really what it was. It was a defense kill, was in defense. He didn't mean to kill Buck. He wanted to just get him off him because he was going crazy, and that's really what it was, and I don't know why Richie can't just admit that. It's not hard to admit. He really didn't do anything wrong. He was just defending himself in the end, and I don't know why it's so hard for him to say. It's really annoying that he's not saying that. So while recording their demo, Jamie listens as the sound guy singles out Duck to see if his playing has improved. Kip, knowing that Duck is going to be asked, complains about Duck sitting down while playing because he doesn't want Duck to be fired. He wants Duck to get better, and it's not working. It doesn't seem like it's working, and of course, Duck doesn't know he's going to be fired, but Kip has an inkling that he is going to be, and obviously he wants talking about it, and I like this scene, definitely. I like the relationship between Kip and Duck. The problem is I don't really care as much about Duck because we haven't really fleshed out his character that much. The nasty bits in general, I want to see more from them. I want to see less of Kip and Jamie, which are great. I love what they're doing with Kip and Jamie, but I want to see more of the nasty bits in general, because while I care about them, I care about them a lot more if I knew more about their characters, which I really don't at this point. So we see the double date with Richie, Devon, Cece, and Hannibal. It's kind of fun at first. We see they're telling this story about Devon's time on Broadway and how she did this one performance, and instead of having waves just be, waves, they had guys be the waves, touching her tits and everything, and obviously Richie was really upset about that. And everyone's impressed by Hannibal's ability to come up with anagrams, their names on the fly, and basically one of the anagrams for Richie's name is He in Race's Fire, which Richie jokingly takes offense to, but again, just like the rest of the episode, you can tell that he's really upset about this. Like, he's joking about it, but he's upset because it's Hannibal. He's not going to take a lot of offense because he wants to make himself look good, but you can tell he's just ready to go off. This entire episode seems like anything with Richie, he's just going to go off on them, which, it didn't happen here, but everyone else, he does go off on. The only reason he doesn't go off on Hannibal is because he's trying to look good in front of him. So Lester joins Jamie on the sound booth, lets the engineer and the band on break. Lester stops Duck before he can leave without making small talk, tells Duck he's fired, and I like the way this was done. Like, Lester just said, Lester told him, look, we have to let you go. He wasn't an asshole, though. Like, you can tell that Lester really is trying to do the right thing. He wants this band to be the best that they possibly can be, and I really like that. I'm loving Lester as a character. I like that he ended up firing Duck because he needed to be. Duck just wasn't up to par with the rest of the band, and hey, if you're not going to be up to par, we're going to have to cut you. And I like that Lester just told him that straight out. It wasn't anything more to it, that he just needed to be fired, and I like the way that was done. So later in Hannibal's hotel suite, this is when I was just like, I cannot stand Richie. After this scene, I was so pissed off. I was upset with the rest of the episode, but this scene really was the scene that just pissed me off. We see everyone's in Hannibal's suite, their drinks are flowing, and basically There's cocaine going and everything. Richie's taking a snore in the bathroom, and Hannibal starts dancing with Devon very sexually. And then Richie starts comforting Cece, basically, because Hannibal says that him and Cece should be dancing, which they don't. And Richie clearly is not happy with Hannibal and Devon dancing. He's not happy about that. But then Richie interrupts the dance, announced that he and Devon must leave to relieve the babysitter. And okay, that's fine. I understand that the babysitter is leaving. They need to be there. All right, that's fine. Then the elevator, Richie and Devon get romantic, but it ends abruptly when Richie realizes that Devon is already aroused from her dance with Hannibal. Why is this a problem? Honestly, why is this such a problem for Richie? Alright, Devon got turned on by another guy. She didn't have sex with him. Like, he says straight out, were you going to have sex with him? He thinks that Devon would have had sex with Hannibal, which she does admit that she would, but she's allowed to be attracted to other guys. I mean, she's a woman. Come on, just give her some respect. That's the thing. The thing about Richie in this scene is it does not come across in this scene to me as, oh, you're doing a wrong thing or something like that. Hang on one second, guys. Got a text message. It doesn't come across to me in this scene, oh, you're doing the wrong thing, or, I don't think that you should be flirting with other guys. That's not the thing that it comes across as. What it comes across to me is, you can't be with anyone but me, you can't have any sexual feelings about anyone but me, and I'm the only one that matters in your life. It just comes across as Richie being very possessive, very upset, and just very controlling, and yeah, it kind of goes to Richie's character, but he wasn't like this with Devon in other episodes. Like, he let her, flirt over other guys, and a good husband should let, his wife do that. I mean, girls are going to get attracted to other guys. It's just how it is. I mean, it shouldn't, any guy that's like that's very possessive, very, dangerous, and just get the hell away from them. That's not the kind of guy you should be with, and that's exactly what Richie was doing here. And then they get in this huge argument, which Devon was completely in the right for. I love what Devon was talking about, that Richie only cares about his career, and the reason that things are going so bad for him is because he cares about his career, cares about nothing else, and that's all that matters to him, and she's completely right. And Richie's just talking about how, oh, you want to have sex with Hannibal and all this stuff, and that you care about other guys, and that you're in the wrong for this, and she slaps him and storms off, and I'm very happy she did that, because really, she did nothing wrong. She flirted with a guy, she sexually danced with him because he wanted her to, and she just had sexual feelings about him. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? There's absolutely nothing wrong. I don't know why Richie was so upset about this. It really was stupid in the end. I don't know why Richie went off on her, and again, kind of out of character for Richie. It didn't really seem like Richie was so concerned about Devon being with anyone but him, and now it seems like, oh, you can't be with anyone but me, and I hope they redeem this, and I'm not saying they need to completely forget about this. Well, this they do, because this really pissed me off, but, yeah, that was really dumb, and especially the ending of this episode. Oh my god, if they go where they're going, I might just stop watching this show, honestly. I'll get into that. But we see the police station, the two detectives who visited Richie insert a cassette tape into a tape player, and unknown to Richie, his office has been bugged, and the entire conversation between Richie and Sal is on tape. But here's the thing, they're not going to find anything, because Richie literally said to Sal, I had nothing to do with this. So they're going to get the wrong idea. They're not going to think that they're going to think that Richie is innocent, and if that was Richie's plan, if he knew he was being taped, that was very well played. But did Richie know he was being taped? That's what I don't understand, and we'll have to see where that's going. Richie's then riding the limo, and Jervis then calls him from Hannibal's hotel room to let him know that Hannibal's just signed his label. Richie just goes off, and I gotta say, Bobby Cannavale did a great job in this scene, just punching the thing, in anger, just saying fuck over and over again. He was really upset. I mean, it was a good scene. I think Bobby Cannavale did a good job here, definitely. I like his performance, and that's the thing with Richie. That's why I'm still watching the show, because Bobby Cannavale does a great job with his character. The character he's playing, I just don't like. That's the problem. He's not a very likable character, he's not a very likable guy, and there's not a lot of good qualities about him. He doesn't have to be likable, but he has to be at least interesting, and Richie's not. At this point, he's just coming across as an asshole. So Richie then meets Andi in an unidentified club. They continue more of their bickering, which has to do with why he married Devon instead of her, and Richie finally reveals the truth, and like I said, the truth is the most shallow thing I could possibly think of. I mean, I was thinking Richie was gonna say, oh, she was just more talented, or she was better than you, or something like that. He literally says she was more attractive than you. He literally says that. He tries to calm Andi down. How do you calm down after, how do you calm someone down? How do you come back from that? You literally said to her face she was more attractive than you. And I understand that maybe Richie was thinking that, but there had to be more of a reason. I mean, come on, man. There had to be more of a reason for that. Do you have to be so shallow? That's exactly what Richie was here. He was extremely shallow, and I can't believe that he was just, oh, she was more attractive than you. There was nothing more to it. He was with her because he thought that she was more attractive, and Andi, for whatever reason, decides to help with the company because she's now gotten the answer she wants, and if she's given part ownership, which I was happy about, which I like that she did decide to help with the company, and I like where they're heading because it seems like next week she's going to teach them how to be more modern and everything. I don't like that Richie's reason was literally because Devon was more attractive than her. That is a really shallow reason. You should never just marry someone just because they're attractive. There had to be more to it. But to Richie, it seems like he only married Devon because he was attracted to her, and that's really dumb. I can't believe that he'd actually do something like that, especially how long these two are together. I can't believe that Richie would actually do that. There has to be more to it. He didn't tell Andi the truth, and there has to be more. I can't think that that's the only reason. But after this episode, I might just think that because the ending of this episode completely goes against everything with Richie and Devon in that fight. Everything Richie said to Devon is just bullshit after this fight. After that, everything, nothing, everything that he said, I mean, I'm not with him at all because Richie sees this woman on the dance floor. She is a coke addict, and it seems like he's gonna flirt with her. Like, he's gonna go up to her. She's dancing sexually toward him. It seems like he's trying not to get aroused, and he literally just had an entire conversation with Devon about how you shouldn't do this, and he's being a complete hypocrite because of that. And I'm sorry, that's all this is coming out as. It's not coming across as interesting. It's coming across as Richie being a hypocrite, and I was really upset about that. But overall, guys, that was the episode. I really did not like this episode, in case you guys couldn't tell. I did not like this episode. I thought this was a really dumb episode, and I really think for Richie, they could make him a lot more interesting had it not just be, oh, she was attractive, or, oh, don't be with other guys. He's just coming across as a possessive, guy that wants ownership of everything. He wants to make sure that everything goes his way, and make sure that he gets his 2 cents into everything. Everything he said in this episode was insulting. Everything he said in this episode was just rude, and there's no point where it feels like Richie is trying to actually be a nice guy, and that he actually cares about what he's doing. No, it seems like he's focused on his work, and everything else is just secondary, and that's really pissing me off, and I understand that's the direction they're going, but I really hope that he tries to turn things around, because it seems like the show just wants to plummet him deeper and deeper into this hole, and it doesn't seem like they want to dig him out of it, and I know it's gonna be hard from, like, with the police and everything, but it seems like he's starting to dig himself out of that, so I don't know if maybe something's gonna get him turn his life around, but that was really dumb. Everything else is episode I really like the stuff with Jamie, I like where that's headed. I like that Lester fired Duck. He needed to do that, and you could tell Lester didn't want to do this, but Duck just wasn't up to par, and I like the way that was done. Definitely very interesting with Lester and Jamie. Is Jamie going to get a promotion? I mean, like Julie said, if she's really good with the nasty business, she should be, and I think that definitely is going to happen. So I'm interested in seeing what's going to happen with Jamie. Is she going to end up taking over her mother's restaurant? I mean, her mother wants her to, but she clearly has other plans, so we'll have to see what's going on there. I think that's very interesting as well, what's going to happen with that. Why can't Richie just confess to someone that he murdered, that he was involved with the murder of Buck? I mean, again, he didn't do fundamentally anything wrong, so I don't know why this is such a problem for him to just admit it. It's not hard for him to do. I think he should just admit what's going on there. And then Clark, like I said, I like seeing Clark, have this position, try to stay in American Century. I think they made him more interesting. I like the way that that was going. Everything else besides Richie, I really enjoyed, but the rest of this episode was just Richie being an asshole, and I hope they try to turn things around. I hope episode 6 is better, and if Richie sleeps with that woman at the end of the episode, I swear to God, I will be pissed out of my mind. And most guys saw this episode, like I said, very upset with this episode, not very happy at all. We didn't even focus really on the music. It was all focused on Richie just being an asshole. That's all we were focused on, and in a show called Vinyl, we need to focus more on the music. We're not focusing on it. We focused in episode 4, which I was very happy about, but this didn't focus really on the music at all. It seemed like everything else was secondary, and the main thing was about keeping Hannibal, which I understand, but there are other acts that Richie needs to focus on. He's not, but let me know what you guys thought of this episode. Love to hear your thoughts on it. We'll see you guys next week, which will be for episode 6 of Vinyl, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.